Up until the Industrial Revolution, it was relatively easy for religions, governments, and rulers to control how people viewed God. Most people were illiterate, and they didn't travel far from where they were born, and their understanding of the world and God came from these authorities. It was all centralized, top down. God was something external, powerful, and distant, and if you wanted to access him, you had to go through the right channels. Now that setup worked for a long time, especially if you were the ones holding the keys. But at the start of the 20th century, something started to change. 2 world wars shattered the illusion of divine protection. Fascism and communism rose to power, each with their own warped idea of utopia, one rooted in racial supremacy, the other in the rejection of spiritual freedom altogether. These ideologies replaced God with the state, the leader, the collective, and they demanded absolute belief. The wars, the propaganda, the genocide. It left people questioning everything. If God was real, where was he during all of this? If the religious version of God was true, why was it so powerless to prevent what happened? And as the century moved on, consumerism, technology, and mass media stepped in to fill the gap. Science became the new religion, psychology took the place of confession, and meaning itself became fragmented, up for sale, or dismissed as superstition. By the time we got to the 21st century, belief became more personal, fragmented, and in many ways more vulnerable. The internet put the world's information at our fingertips, but at the same time made it easier to distract, manipulate, and control us. We're told we're freer than ever, but we're also more overwhelmed than ever before. People are bombarded with conflicting ideas, shallow truths, and algorithm-driven content that rewards outrage over understanding. And yet, despite all of this, a secret remained: the forgotten idea of the MONAD, the One, the God above God. Not the man in the sky version passed down by institutions, but the original source of everything, the thing before the name God even existed. And once you understand this, I mean really understand it, changes everything you think you knew. So the word monad comes from the Greek monos, meaning the one, or more importantly, that which is indivisible. Now to the Greek and Egyptian philosophers, the monad wasn't a being amongst beings, it was being itself. It was the source of which everything else emerged, not through creation in the physical sense, but through emanation, a spontaneous outpouring of itself into form. Pythagoras described the monad as the first principle, the origin of all numbers, and just as all numbers come from one, and none can exist without it, everything arises from the monad, and can never be apart from it. Plato called this the good, the Hermetics called it the all, and the Gnostics called it the hidden God, a presence beyond comprehension, beyond form, yet closer to us than our own breath. The monad isn't a personality or an entity, and it doesn't think in terms of judgment or morality. It simply is. It's pure consciousness, the field in which all thoughts, forms, and dimensions appear. Everything we see, touch, or feel is a reflection of that original oneness, experiencing itself through infinite variations. When the monad extends itself, it becomes the many, but the many never truly separate, they only appear to. Like waves on the surface of an ocean, individuality is a movement within unity. The wave might call itself I, but it has never been anything other than water. To understand the monad is to recognize that divinity is not something to be reached, but something to be remembered. It's the realization that the source never left us. We just forgot that we were never anything else. So within esoteric teachings, creation wasn't seen as a beginning, but as a distancing, a gradual unfolding away from perfect unity. The monad expressed itself into levels of existence, each step slightly dimmer than the one before, until consciousness reached the realm of matter. This ascent through dimensions is what the Gnostics and Hermetics called emanation. At the top everything was one, but as the emanations continued, the sense of separation grew stronger. The individual soul, once fully aware of its oneness with Source, began to identify with the illusion of being separate. This is the real fall, not from grace but from awareness. We didn't fall because of sin, we fell because of forgetfulness. The human condition became a dream, in which the dreamer forgot he was dreaming. The monad began to look at its own reflection, and believed it was something other than itself. Now this forgetting gave birth to duality, light and dark, good and evil. The universe became a field of opposites, all generated by the One, who had hidden itself in its own creation. And in that play of opposites, humanity began to seek God in the outer world, never realizing that what it was looking for had never gone anywhere. The moment you see this, that separation was never real, you begin to reverse the fall. You start to remember. You see, the path to awakening isn't about becoming divine. It's about remembering that you already are. So when people started to remember the truth, those in power faced a problem. If every human carried a spark of the monad, there was no need for priests, churches, and temples. This realization threatened the growing power of religious institutions, most notably the early Roman Catholic Church. In a world built on control and hierarchy, the idea that divinity was personal and immediate was dangerous. Because if God lived in every person, then nobody could claim to speak for him. So over time this knowledge was rewritten. The inner God became an outer one. The word faith was transformed from inner knowing to blind obedience. The Gospels that once spoke in symbols of consciousness and unity were reinterpreted as literal histories and external commandments. Groups like the Valentinians and the Essens taught that the true God was not the creator of the physical world, but the light within consciousness itself. For this they were silenced, branded heretics, and their writings buried. By the 4th century, the Council of Nicaea decided which Gospels were acceptable and which would vanish from the canon. The rest were all labelled as blasphemy. But despite this knowledge still survived. The rose and the cross, the eye and the triangle, and the Ouroboros encoded it in symbols. The Knights Templar, Rosicrucians, and the Freemasons disguised it in geometry, architecture, and alchemy. And philosophers like Bruno and Paracelsus risked their lives speaking of an infinite God within all things. Bruno was later burned at the stake for this. You see, the greatest deception of the last 5,000 years is convincing humanity that the kingdom of God is far away, when in truth the all is mind. So to remember the monad is to wake up from the illusion that you are separate from life. The Hermetics said, "He who knows himself knows the all." The Upanishad said, "Thou art that." And the Gnostics said, "The kingdom of God is within you." But what does this all mean in the 21st century? These aren't just sayings, they're practical instructions for how to live life. They remind you that consciousness, your awareness, is the foundation of everything. You don't have to search for God somewhere out there. The awareness watching this video is that divine presence. And you can test this yourself. Next time you feel stressed, just close your eyes for 10 seconds. Notice the space between your thoughts, that stillness that doesn't react, doesn't judge, doesn't change. That's the same awareness that existed before your name, before your story, before the thought, "I am me." The monad didn't disappear. It became you so it could experience creation through your perspective. Remembering isn't about losing your individuality. It's about seeing that individuality is how the one explores itself. You're not supposed to dissolve into nothingness. You're supposed to wake up to the everything that you are. When you live with that understanding, you stop looking for validation. Stop chasing authority outside of yourself. Stop trying to find God through effort. Instead, you begin to act, speak, and think from the quiet awareness that has always been there. You don't worship God as something separate. You express God as consciousness in motion. Because the monad was never hidden by darkness. It was only obscured by the belief that you were anything less than light itself. For me, realizing the monad doesn't make life easier in a superficial sense, but it does change everything about how you experience it. You stop seeing yourself as a fragment of creation, trying to reach the divine, and you start seeing yourself as the divine exploring creation. The world becomes a mirror, and every reflection, person, and challenge is another face of the same one, looking back at you. The hidden God was never hiding from us. It was hiding as us, concealed behind identity, waiting to be recognized. The monad has always been there, observing through every pair of eyes, thinking through every mind, and loving through every heart. And the moment you remember that, the illusion of distance vanishes, and you realize that you were never separate to begin with. Thank you for being here. As always, I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Bye for now.